All right, this is 10.8. Very similar to what we were doing in chapter 8. We're working on investment and mixture problems. So before when I gave you your 3x3 box, we named our first column amount. I want you to still do that here. Okay? And then what operation did we do when we went across? We multiplied, and we multiplied by a unit. Here, it appears our unit is in percents. It's equal to a product. Now, what are the items that I am comparing here? Stocks and bonds. Now, I want you to notice, okay, it says Macy has 4,000 in stocks paying 12% interest and bonds paying 8%. Is that 4,000 in stocks or stocks and bonds? It's stocks and bonds because the period ends here. So the end of that thought, if that were just stocks, it would go right here. But that 4,000 really represents stocks and bonds. Okay? So what is the percent for our stocks? It was 12%. And how would I write that as a decimal? 0 and 12 hundredths. Okay, how do I show the bonds? What would this be? Or we say 0 and 8 hundredths. Okay, now, do we know how many stocks alone? How much in stocks alone? Do we know how much in bonds alone? So we say that this is the sum, right? And so this would be, do we know the total of both?
Yes.
We get 4,000, right? 4,000 worth. Now, do we know how many stocks? What'd you say? What'd you say? Do we know?
No.
Okay, here we go. So let's call stocks X. And do we know how many bonds? No. So if I know the total, can't I call this the total minus the stocks? Are you with me? Can we call it that? So we'll call it 4,000 minus our temporary. Do you understand how I got that? 4,000 minus X. Is that clear? Okay, and I'm multiplying across, and I get 12 hundredths X, and I'm multiplying across, and I get 8 hundredths times 4,000 minus X. And then I don't have a percent that I'm multiplying that 4,000 by, so I just put the 4,000 across. So that becomes my equation. Okay? That there becomes the equation. So I end up with 0 and 12. Sorry. Make sure. Let's move it over. Okay, I end up with 0 and 12 hundredths X plus the bonds is 8%, right? 8 hundredths times 4,000 minus X equals the 4,000. Okay, questions? Yes. Oh. Okay, so stocks and bonds. Have you heard of the stock market? Yeah. The question is, what is stocks and bonds? So the stock market is like I might buy some stock in Tesla. Okay, and so what they're saying is you make, let's say, 12% per stock. You know, if you keep it there for a year, let's say you bought, it was $10, you'd make 12% of that at the end of the year for one stock. But you usually buy multiples, right? bonds are items that are issued by the government. It's another thing that you can invest in. Bonds, you make 8%. So what they're saying is we made 4,000 altogether, but how much of each did we have? So here's my equation, and now I'm going to clear my fraction because I don't like these decimals. So I'm going to multiply all terms by, what would we need? 100. And so that will become 12x plus 8. Now notice this is one term. So it's going to be 8 times 4,000 minus x. Notice that doesn't change, right? Equals 4,000. Oh, wait, no, I got to add 40, right. Right? So now I'm going to, I have 12x plus 32 with 3 zeros minus 8x equals 40,000. I'm going to combine my like terms. I'm combining the like terms, and I get 12x minus 8x is 4x. And I have 3. Did I need to add another 0? Yeah. Oh, so it's 400,000. Okay. All right, so I have 32,000. Okay, minus plus 4x, right? I don't know, something's seeming awfully off right now. 100, 100, 100. Huh? So equals 400,000, and now I'm gonna just bring it up here. We have 32,000 plus 4x equals 400,000. I'm subtracting the 32,000. Wow, maybe I shouldn't have gotten rid of those decimals. And I get 4x equals divided by minus 32, and we get 368,000. Oh, I don't remember this. And then I'm dividing by 4. Divide by 4. Okay, there's something I did wrong because I don't remember 92,000. What am I doing wrong here? Did I do 0.8? No. Is it 92,000? Did I get it right? Let's check my... I don't remember that.
You put 4,000 instead of 432.
Oh, 'cause it's totally.
Oh, that's why. Okay, there we go. Sorry. So my total was, if she earns 400, because that's the 4,000 she invested. Sorry, there we go. I was like, wow, I don't remember that. So if the 432, I would have to put it at the bottom. And so when I multiply that by 100, we ended up with, it would be 12x plus 8 times 4,000. I was like, I don't remember this. Times x equals 43200. There, 43,000. Now when you subtract the 32, do you understand? I can go like this. Okay. So then I have 0. So when I'm multiplying by 100, and we get 12x plus 8 times 4,000 minus 8x equals 43200. Huh? Oh yeah, sorry. I was distributing. Yep, you're right. And there we go. minus x.
It's excellent.
Yeah, there we go. So then I'm distributing, I get 32, 2, 3, that's a positive, sorry. And then we have minus 8x and 12x here. I'm subtracting 32,000, subtract 32,000. So we get 43 minus 32, 1, 2, 3. We get 11,000. So this ends up equaling 4x equals 11,200. Divide by 4, divide by 4, and x is equal to 2,800. So what's 2,800? What? How much I put into my stocks. And the bonds would be 44,000 minus the 2,800. So that would be 1,200. Okay. It didn't make sense to me when I was getting like, what was it, 90-some thousand. From the little investment. You don't make that much money in the stock market. So that's what tells you have to go back. All right, can I continue? All right, now it's going to be a little bit different in that we're going to use our full 3x3 box this time. Okay, everybody make another 3x3 box. We're doing the same thing. We're labeling the first column. What do we call it? Amount. Somebody want to read the problem? Go. You.
A 12-pound mixture of peanuts and cashews sells for $8.50 per pound.
$6.50 per pound.
$6.50 per pound. If peanuts sell for 3 per pound and cashews sell for 8 per pound, how many pounds of peanuts are in the mix?
Okay, so my units here are dollars, and we multiply and we get a product. Okay, what am I comparing?
Peanuts and cashews.
And they're also, so when we add them together, I put the peanuts in the bag and the cashews in the bag, we get a mix. Okay? Okay, what's the price of the peanuts? $3. What's the price of the cashews?
$8.
And what about the price of the mixture?
$6.50 a pound.
$6.50. So, meaning we're taking something that's really expensive, mixing it with the nuts that are really cheap, and we're making kind of a medium price. Does that make sense? You bought like pounds and pounds of cashews, it would be very expensive. But we're mixing it with some, like a kind of nut that's not so expensive. Okay, now, a 12-pound mixture of peanuts and cashews. So where does that 12 go? Which one? Goes under the bottom. Right, do we know how many peanuts? So we call it, what are we going to call the cashews? 12 minus the x. And then we multiply all the way across. So I get a 3x plus 8 times 12 minus x equals 12 times 650. So my equation's 3x plus 8 times 12 minus x equals, I'm going to just multiply that out, right? That's 78 there. And then we distribute. Okay. I get negative 5x, 96. Subtracting 96. Be very careful here. Negative 5x equals negative 18. So I get negative 5x equals negative 18. Divide by negative 5. And x is equal to, it goes 3. And we have a remainder of 3/5. So I'm going to say 3.6. And what is that talking about? What units?
Pounds.
Pounds, LBS. So I'm going to say X stands for 3.6 LBS. And what about the cashews? 12 minus
9.4. No, 7.4.
3.6, nope, 8.4
Numbers.
LBS. So it says how many pounds of peanuts are in the mix. So they really only want that peanuts. Okay? And you do need to identify that. How are you guys doing? Understandable?
Yes.
Because you went through it before and they're not that different. So basically one student said to me, why didn't we do these before? Because you were doing so much before that I like when it comes back here and you have time to like digest it and come back to it.
What does it get harder?
No, not really. The stories change a little bit, but it's really the same thing. Okay, now we're going to chemistry class. You ready? Another 3 by 3. Okay. I'm still calling it amount times percent. I'm still dealing equals the product. Now, when I name what I'm talking about, how about, who else wants to read? I'm out of breath. Go, Nathan.
A 10% acid solution is mixed with a 60% acid solution to produce 120 liters of a solution that is 40% acid. How much of each solution was used to create the mixture?
So when I name these, I name them what they call them. We have a 10% solution. Is mixed with what?
60% solution.
And what do we want?
112 milliliters of solution.
A 40%. Okay? And that's the mix. So right away I know what my decimals are. So what's the first? The 10% decimal is what decimal? 10 hundredths? No. 1/10. Okay? Convert it, move it over once, twice. Keep going. Anna Maria, what's the next one?
It's 6/10,
Good. And then the last one, the mix is going to be?
4/10.
Good. Now, where does the 120 go?
The bottom of the pound.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that going in the bottom row, the middle row? Okay, so it's the mix of 120. Do we know how much of the 10%?
No.
So we call it,
X.
and what with the 60%? How much do we have of the 60%?
120 minus X.
Good. Multiply across. Okay, and then I'm just going to multiply this out. That's 4 times 12 is 48. 480, but there's one decimal, so it's 48. So my equation is 0.1 x plus 0 6/10 times 120 minus x equals 48. Okay, if I want to get rid of the decimal, what am I multiplying by? So I get x plus, notice this is all one term. So I'm only multiplying the 6 and then that decimal gets multiplied in from the 6. Equals 480 minus 6x equals 480. It's negative 5x equals 480, 720. I'm going to subtract 720. Be very careful here. Negative 5x equals, it's negative 240. Somebody said, isn't that 360? Those people are subtracting up and down. Don't make that mistake. Make sure you rewrite it when you do it. Okay, I'm dividing by -5. And we get x equals 48. And 48 represents what?
Well, not for the 10%.
Liters.
Liters of the 10%. So this is 48 liters. And then the other one would be, how would I figure out the other one? 120 minus the 48 is 72 liters. So, can I erase? If I make sure, now it's asking how much of each solution. So you do need both answers. And you got to be specific. Don't just tell me 48 liters and 72 liters. If you did that on a test, I'd want to know which one was 48. Does that make sense? So if I'm taking 48 liters of the 10% and 72 liters of the 60%, I'm going to get 120 liters of 40% mixture. Does that make sense? Can I continue? Okay, here we go. Amount times percent equals, does it seem hard? Huh?
No.
No. It's the same stuff we did in chapter 8. Okay, nice and loud. Somebody who wants to read? Eden?
Mix holds a beaker that contains 40 liters of solution that is 20% salt. How much water must be added to make the solution only 20% salt?
Salt is mixed with what? Salt is mixed with what?
Water.
There we go. So my two things is my salt solution with my 20%, the really strong salt water is mixed with water. And what do we want? 8% mix. Okay. What decimals do we have in the middle column for the first one, Keshri? 0 and?
2/10
Good. The 8%?
is 8/10.
No. 8/10 is 80%.
800.
Yep. 800ths. Now, water. How much salt does it have?
0.
It has 0. So we call it 0 because there's no salt in it. And now I've got the amount is, do we know how much salt water there is? What? It says there's 40 liters of a salt. There's the end of the period. So that we're given this time. How much water? What do I write for that? To make the solution of only 8%. So what do you think we're going to call the new total? 40 plus x. Multiply across. And so I get 0 and 2/10. I'm going to just multiply that. 2 times 40 is 80. Huh?
Isn't x times 0, 0?
Oh, yes. Wow, look what I did. I'm very burned out to be doing this at the end of the day. So we are adding. So it becomes 2/10 times 40 is 8. Plus 0 equals 0 and 8/100 times 40 plus x. I want to get rid of that decimal. Isn't 8 plus 0 just 8? So I'm going to multiply by 100. I don't need to multiply it by 0. So I'm going to get 8 times 40 plus x. 320 plus 8x equals 800. Subtract the 320. And I get Thank you. My brain is not working right now. But this is nice and easy. Divide by both sides by 8. And x is equal to 60. 60 what?
Liters of water.
Liters of water. Okay, do they want the total? What do they want? They want how much water? Okay, questions? Okay, we have a couple more to just hit. Really just one more after this. And then we'll go through some homework problems. All right, the paint problem. All right, so I like to call it amount. I don't go with what my PowerPoint does. I call it amount times the percent equals the product. Who wants to read this one? Andrea?
Yeah, a painter has 50 gallons of paint that is 5% thinner. This mixture needs to be 20% thinner. How much paint thinner should be added to the mix?
That's what painters do. They start out with this really thick paint, then they buy some thinner and they water it down. And so I'm comparing my 5% paint, my paint that has 5% thinner. I'm mixing it with what?
20%.
What'd you say? What? Thinner, paint thinner. Just pure. It's pure. And what do we want?
20%.
20% mix of paint with thinner. So we'll call this one 0 and 5/100. Call this one 0 and 2/10. What do you think we're going to call the paint thinner?
Wouldn't it be 0.2?
Oh, yeah, you're right. It's not 2%. What are we calling it? Why?
Because paint thinner is 100% paint thinner.
It's pure. So 100%, to convert that to a decimal, we move it once, twice, so it's 1. Okay? Now, do we know how much of the 5% we have?
50 gallons.
Okay, do we know how much paint thinner? Call it X. What's the total?
50 plus X.
Good. Multiply across. 50 times 0.05 plus X equals 0 and 2/10 times 50 plus X. I'm going to erase and go to the PowerPoint. Okay, when I multiply that out, I get 2 and 5/10. My equation is this. I would like to get rid of those decimals, so I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by 10. So I get 25 plus 10x equals 2 times the quantity. Okay, 25 plus 10x equals 2x plus 100. Subtract 2x, subtract 2x. I end up with an 8x. Here I'm going to subtract 25, subtract 25. I end up with a 75. So 8x equals 75. And x equals 9 and 375 thousandths gallons. And what does X stand for? Of thinner. In order to get that 20% mixture, I have to mix 9.375 gallons. Does that make sense? Okay. So out of breath today. It's hard for me to... Yes. Hovannes. To Mike. Okay. Now, tonight, they're going to talk to you about butterfat. Everybody say butterfat. I like that word. That's why I make people say it. Okay, it sounds really disgusting, but you know, like you go to the market and you go buy milk, and they have like 1%, 2%. Have you seen that? Non-fat, sometimes they call it. Okay, they're going to mention skim milk. Do you know what skim milk is? It's non-fat milk. That means what percentage is the fat in skim milk? 0. If it's non-fat, it's 0. If it's no, it's no fat. It's not only fat. Butter is 100% fat. Okay? That would be pure fat. So, is everybody clear on that? When you get to the butter fat, they mention the word skim. That means there's 0% fat in it. Like they'll take a very creamy milk, like whipping cream, and mix it with a non-fat, and it lessens the fat level. Yeah, they could take whole milk mixed with skim milk, and that's how you get your like 2% or your 1%. They're mixing those. But how much do you have to mix to get that level? Now, in your boxes, you use my boxes. You don't have to fill out their boxes. Use my boxes. Add all your information, make sure you get the equation. There's 8 problems. It should be much easier this time compared to when we did chapter 8. Oh my gosh, I think that's it for us. Let me just double check. Can I erase that? Here's an alcohol problem. I think that's good. That is it. We are out.